What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And we have a jam-packed show for you all today as the NVA playoffs have come to a close. And at the end of the playoffs, we have the Orange County Stunners standing as the top team, the winners of the 2021 NVA Cup. And yes, I was totally proven wrong. The Stunners stunned everyone, in my opinion. They really showed their chops, and they really strutted their stuff. And I knew they were going to go all the way to the final, but how were they able to win the championship, and who'd they beat? Also, we have more schedule releases from the NCAA women's volleyball teams, such as Wisconsin, Pitt, Creighton, Tennessee, and my beloved Long Beach State former 49ers. So I'll be talking about those schedule releases soon, and we have a lot more, yes, a lot more transfer news from last week. Last week we only had 5 transfers. Now this time I think we've got double. Also, we have some USA U20 women's volleyball news as they went 3-0 in pool play. Can they keep it up in the knockout round tomorrow? All that and more here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon. This is episode 98 of Set Point, and let's go over a little disclaimer from last week. So last week, I accidentally put that it was episode 98 when it was actually episode 97. So I really apologize to everyone if you're seeing double. I kind of had to make the little correction. It's kind of there in terms of YouTube that last week was episode 98, but last week was episode 97. This week is episode 98 of Set Point. So just need to get that clarification out the way. And we all make mistakes sometimes. Like, I even forget what episode Set Point and the SoCal Supreme Sports Show is on. I mean, we're all human. We all make mistakes, but that was my bad. I just need to get that disclaimer out of the way, so there's that right there. So without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. We had a lot of volleyball action that happened last weekend, but first we have some sponsors we need to go over, such as our official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, which is the Southern California Warriors. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow the Southern California Warriors on Twitter at SoCal Warriors and on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors. And then they are also on Facebook. If you search the words Southern, the words California, and Warriors, you will find the SoCal Warriors, and then you'll be able to follow them and what they are doing as of right now. And they just released their schedule a few weeks ago, so there's that as well. So thank you to the Southern California Warriors for being the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. So without any further delay, now let's get into some volleyball action. So the NVA playoffs happened last weekend, and it was down to 8 teams. The NVA had 10 teams. Unfortunately, 2 didn't make the postseason, and now 8 teams battled it out for the NVA crown. We'll start with the quarterfinals. So I actually got to check out pretty much all of the matches. I did have to take a couple breaks just because I had to read for one of my classes, but for the most part, I saw most of the matches. So the first quarterfinal matchup that happened was Southern Exposure versus the Chicago Untouchables. So long story short, and not to go too much on this, the Untouchables came out hot. That first set, they really set the tone as they pretty much dominated that first set. And then in set number 2, it was tight in that second set, but the Untouchables were able to squeak away by taking the second set by, I think, like 25-23. And then everyone was thinking the Chicago Untouchables were going to shock the world. And everyone was saying Southern Exposure was going to sweep the Chicago Untouchables. Like, the commentators were just riding Southern Exposure, and everyone in the live chat, because this was posted on YouTube, they were saying Southern Exposure in 3. It was pretty funny. So it looked as if the Untouchables was going to pull off the first upset of the NVA playoffs. But then Southern Exposure started to get hot. But they started to catch fire, but not before the Untouchables was trying to keep pace with them. Set 3 was very back and forth, but in the end, Southern Exposure took that third set by a close margin. And then in set 4, Southern Exposure really let Chicago have it as they dominated for the most part of set 4 and won. I think it was 25-20 or 18. Either way, Chicago and Southern Exposure went to a fifth set, and the fifth set was also tight. It actually went past 15, which is quite amazing. And Chicago actually had one match point at 16-15. Unfortunately for the Untouchables, they did not take advantage of it, as Southern Exposure eventually won the fifth set 19-17, advancing to the semifinals and eliminating the Chicago Untouchables from playoff contention. It was a very tough loss for the Untouchables. They almost had the upset. If they had closed them out in set 3, there wouldn't even need to be a set 4. But I think that set 3 was the turning point for the Untouchables, as Southern Exposure won that close set, and it really showed that they were back, as it was really impressive of how Southern Exposure really rebounded. Keep in mind, Southern Exposure had come in on a 3-game winning streak, and the Untouchables, I think, was on a 3 or 4 game losing streak. But regardless, the Untouchables just fell short of winning, but they gave it a great effort. They could not have asked to play a much better game. Unfortunately, Southern Exposure just got hot when it mattered, and after winning that third set, they eventually just rose back and just dominated the rest of the way. So, tough one for the Untouchables, but Southern Exposure advances to the semifinals. So the next quarterfinal matchup we have is the Texas Tyrants versus the Orange County Stunners. Oh, by the way, keep in mind, I did pick Southern Exposure to beat the Untouchables, but I said it wouldn't shock me if the Untouchables gave him some sort of battle. So now we jump to the Texas Tyrants and the Orange County Stunners. Now, this matchup, I had the Stunners pulling off the upset against the Tyrants. The Tyrants came in tied for the best record in the NVA at 7-2, while the Orange County Stunners came in, I think they came in 6-3, I want to say. No, it was 5-4. So, before I continue, I gotta give a shout to the chat room. Adam Karnick comes in, says good evening, and wishes me the best of luck with this episode. And he says, and he does say the Untouchables got bounced, but what else is good in the volleyball world? And then Gina G, aka Reppin' to NorCal Sports, comes in, and she's very complimentary of all the work that I did this past weekend. And she also says she needs Stanford news. Well, I kind of talked about Stanford women's volleyball last week, which I guess I can semi-reiterate it, but I think there was some Stanford news. I'll get to that in a little bit. So Adam also says the Untouchables will be back. I agree. I think they will be back. And it was just unfortunate that they caught Southern Exposure at a hot time after they dropped that third set. So, here's hoping the Untouchables do come back next season. So we'll see. All right, now over to the Tyrants and the Stunners. So the first set between the Tyrants and the Stunners really came to play as they played every aspect of the game of volleyball really perfectly. They won that first set, I think it was 25-18. Regardless, it was a lot more one-sided than I thought it was going to be. Like, the Tyrants really kind of looked out of it, and I don't know if that was because the Stunners were much better than their record indicated, but I'm just going to say this, that the Stunners are a lot better than what their record indicates. Because keep in mind, that was a team that started 0-3 because of injuries and not having players available. So there was that right there. And it was 25-20. So, yeah, the thing about the Stunners is they had a lot of great offensive options, such as Nick Amato, Nick West, Joey Jarvis, and that's just to name a few right there. So, honestly, the Stunners were a much better team than what their record and seed actually indicated. As in the second set, the Tyrants actually started off strong. After they gave up the first point of the second set, they went on a 6-0 run, and unfortunately, they didn't really trail a whole lot after that. As Adam says, he's got to help put the kiddo to bed, and he says he'll try to catch back up later. I appreciate you for tuning in, Adam, and definitely do check out Adam's show, Chi-Town Weekly. His show comes on an hour before mine, which he always does a great job talking about all things Chicago sports. And definitely check out Reppin' to NorCal Sports, which comes on 2 hours before mine every Monday. So definitely do check out those shows. I'll be giving them a little bit more of a plug as the show goes on. So back to the Tyrants and the Stunners. So the Tyrants took set number 2, 25-18, and this was no surprise. The Tyrants looked really strong. Gianluca Grasso, a player who I had the honor of seeing back in his junior college days, he was just amazing for the Tyrants, as he was just absolutely amazing. He was great when it came to swinging at the ball. He had well-timed swings, and he placed the ball perfectly on the court. And he also passed pretty decently as well. I also didn't know that Gian no longer jump serves. Like, back in his days at Orange Coast College, he used to jump serve quite a bit, and then I guess he, switched to float serving just because his jump serves are somewhat hit or miss, because jump serving is very tricky. Like, sometimes those things are very tough to handle, but sometimes they'll either go into the net or they'll go far. Like, it's a game of chance, honestly. So there's that right there. There's that little tidbit right there. Then in set number 3, it was actually tight for the most part, as both teams weren't giving each other an inch. The Stunners actually led 16-14 at the technical timeout. So the technical timeout is the first to 16. No matter who takes timeouts before then, it basically is the TV timeout. It's just for both teams to get their rest, for the camera people to stretch out, and then for the commentators to catch their breath, get some water and whatnot, and then for the fans to go to the bathroom and whatnot. So then the Tyrants actually turned the tables. After they were down 19-17, the Tyrants went on a 5-2 run and led 22-21, and then eventually they won the set 25-23. The last point of that set is something Orange County wishes they had gotten back, because they missed a serve, which is the worst way to drop a set. And missed serves can really come back to haunt you. So, unfortunately for the Tyrants, they dropped that. Unfortunately for the Stars, they dropped that third set, while the Tyrants were one set away from winning the match. As for the Stunners, they led a little early in set number 4. They were up 9-5 in set 1. And then eventually, that 9-5 lead blossomed into a 7-3 run as they led 16-8 at the technical timeout, and eventually the Stunners forced a fifth set by taking set 4 25-18. In set 5, it was very close between those two teams, as in the beginning, it looked as if the Stunners were going to run away with it. They actually led, I think it was 8-1, I want to say, 8-1 or 8-2, and then, no, it was 8-3. The Stunners were up 8-3, and then 4 points later, the Tyrants just went on a tear and got the lead down to 8-7. But that was as close as the Tyrants really got, as the Stunners made sure they did not give the Tyrants any leeway to take the lead, as they won that fifth set 15-10, and they won the match. And honestly, I knew the Stunners were going to win, just because they're a much different team than they were back in event number 1 when the two teams met. So that was a huge win for the Stunners. So the Stunners won that quarterfinal. Then in the third quarterfinal, we had the not the Ontario Matadors. We had the Utah Stingers versus Team Freedom of Atlantic City / New Jersey. Long story short, the Stingers really took it to Team Freedom and they swept them. Here's why. Team Freedom was not at full strength. They had injuries on their team, and then also they had a tropical storm in the New York, New Jersey area, which prevented some of their players from traveling. So unfortunately, Team Freedom was just unable to be at full strength. The first set they could have probably taken, as they lost the first set 28-26, and that right there was the turning point. If Team Freedom takes that first set, they actually have a fighting chance, but unfortunately they lost the first set via deuce set, and then they lost set 2 25-13, which was way more one-sided. And then they tried to fight back in set number 3, but the Stingers just had all the momentum, and they jumped out to an early lead and eventually swept the match by taking set 3 25-20. 25-22. But regardless, that was that for Team Freedom and the Utah Stingers. So now I jump to the last quarterfinal match. We had the Las Vegas Ramblers, the number 1 overall seed, versus the Ontario Matadors, which actually was the home team. So the first 2 sets belonged to the Ramblers, as it was pretty one-sided. Long story short, the Ramblers jumped out to an early lead. They led by a big margin. Ontario tried to come back, but unfortunately it was no good. They won both sets by scores of 25-20. And I think those sets were a lot closer than most people think. I know it was one-sided because Ontario never led, but they never gave up. Like, they also lost their libero in set number 1, at some point in set number 1. If not, it was before set number 2. Regardless, Ontario pretty much had nothing to lose after they lost that second set. As in set 3, it was actually a whole different story, as the Ramblers actually led early on, and then the Matadors were able to... Actually, no. Ontario took the early lead at 8-5, and then it got close, as the Ramblers just kept fighting back and just trying to win the match in 3 sets. But the Matadors just didn't give up. And even when it looked as if the Ramblers were going to come back and win the set, Ontario had some well-timed points, and they eventually won that third set 25-21. Then in set number 4, it was tight for the most part, but Vegas basically had a leg up on Ontario. But eventually Ontario got the score to being 24-23, where they served for match point. Unfortunately, due to the strong arm of Brandon Rattray and many other talented players on the Ramblers, they were able to put Ontario away in that 4th set, winning it 25-23 and advancing to the semifinals. So that was a big win for the Ramblers, but I gotta give it up to the Matadors. Despite them being heavy underdogs, they didn't give up. So good job to the Matadors. So now in the semifinals, we had Southern Exposure versus the Orange County Stunners. So both these teams were nearly identical in terms of records. The only difference is that Southern Exposure won their conference, while the Orange County Stunners finished 4th in their conference. So Or I'm sorry, not fourth. They finished third in their conference. Regardless, the first set actually featured Southern Exposure getting off to a slow start. They trailed throughout most of the set, but eventually tried to climb back in it as they trailed by as many as 5, but then they got the lead down to 23-22. But the Stunners took that first set 25-22, and then in set number 2, it was kind of the same actually, as the Stunners jumped out to somewhat of an early lead, and then they started to pull away a little bit as the Southern Exposure tried to get the lead down to a respectable margin and to the point where they can take over the lead, but unfortunately the Stunners were just too good and they won that second set 25-21. But then in set 3 we saw a whole different Southern Exposure team. Southern Exposure really came to play as their serves were just really good and nothing really went the Stunners' way. Eventually Southern Exposure took that third set 25-18. We see a lot of 25-18. So that's kind of a one-sided set right there, if in my opinion. So there's that. But then in set 4, Southern Exposure kind of just ran out of gas as the Stunners just were scoring at will, and eventually they just dominated the fourth set, winning 25-13 and punching their ticket into the NVA championship game. Then in the semifinal between the Utah Stingers and the Las Vegas Ramblers. By the way, I picked the Stunners to go to the finals, and I also picked the Ramblers, the Stingers to win their matches in the quarterfinals as well. So far it was actually perfect. Then in the Stingers-Ramblers matchup, I was very concerned to pick a winner. I originally picked the Ramblers to win last week. For those that didn't catch last week's episode of Set Point, I picked the Ramblers and Stunners to get to the finals. So in this matchup between the Stingers and the Ramblers, it almost looked, it could have gone either way. But the first set, the Stingers jumped out to an early 13-8 lead, but then the Ramblers came rambling back as they went on an 8-2 run to get the score to being 16-15 at the technical timeout. Eventually, the Ramblers won that first set 25-18 as, remember, the Stingers led 13-8, and then the Ramblers eventually closed that set on a 17-5 run, which was a huge turnaround, and that might have been the turning point of the match. In set 2, it was also pretty close, as there was also some chatting, I wouldn't say trash talk, but both teams were just chirping at one another, just the friendly little semi-rivalry between these two teams. Last week I said the Ramblers were the reigning champions. I was incorrect. It was the Stingers that were the reigning champions, so that was my bad. So, yeah, last week I kind of wasn't on my A game. Partially because of the beach volleyball news that happened last week, but I digress. So, in that second set, the Ramblers won it 25-20. It was closer than the last set, but the Stingers just did not have that extra sting to them. They were all buzz and no sting as the Ramblers were up 2-0 in the match. Then in set number 3, the Stingers went up 5-2 early on, but then the Ramblers went on a 5-0 run to go up 7-5, and eventually they just ran away with it as they won set 3, 25-16, advancing to the NVA championship where they'll face the OC Stunners, and that was pretty much your final. In the third place matchup, I'm just going to go over this very briefly. The Utah Stingers swept Southern Exposure. Long story short, the Stingers were mad about yesterday, and they took it out on Southern Exposure. Now, this does not mean Southern Exposure was not good. I just think the Stingers were just a more dominating team, as they just were strong all the way. Regardless, it was a great season for Southern Exposure. They won their conference. Unfortunately, they just ran into the buzzsaw that was the OC Stunners, and it's not their fault. One of their players did make the all-tournament team, So there was that right there. But the Stingers finished third after they finished first last year. Now we get to the championship game between the Stunners and the Ramblers. So these two teams are a fun group. These two teams actually practice with one another in Southern California, which is quite amazing, actually. Like, fun fact, most of these players on the Las Vegas Ramblers are actually from California. And believe it or not, they actually practice with the Orange County Stunners. So that's kind of something I didn't know about until I found out about when I was listening to this live stream. So I'm like, that's cool. So first set. So the first set, surprisingly, the OC Stunners got off to a very hot start. They led 16-10 at the technical timeout. Like, I was very surprised that the Stunners were really playing their A game. I think this was their best match ever. The Ramblers actually chipped away at the lead. They went on a 6-3 run to get the lead down to 19-16. And eventually the set one was tied at 20-20. I was very shocked, but errors were kind of the worst enemy for the Ramblers, as they had a lot of 10-foot violations that even someone on Twitter told me we're seeing a lot more back row attacks in the last few days than one would expect. And I think he meant to say we're seeing a lot more back row attacker violations than one would expect. And I totally agreed with him. There were quite a bit of mistakes. I had never seen a whole lot of back row attackers. Though what that is there's a 10-foot line, and if you go for an attempt and you cross it before you go and get the kill, you basically are getting called for a 10-foot back row attacker violation. So in order to get a kill from the back row, which is like very deep, you either have to be behind the 10-foot line or you have to cross it first, then swing up and get the kill. In other words, you basically have to be like by the antenna, otherwise it's not going to count for anything. So the Ramblers just kept doing that sort of thing. They kept getting back row attacker violations, and I think that's what kind of hurt them when it came to this match. As the Stunners took the first set 25-21, and fittingly enough, the Ramblers actually got called for a back row attacker violation, which ended the set and gave the Stunners the first set. They really came to play in that first set. I'll give them that much right there. So it really is quite amazing. So then in the second set, the Ramblers led the Stunners 9-5 in set 2, which at that point I was thinking, okay, now the Ramblers are getting it together. And then the Stunners actually battled back. Like, they were trailing throughout most of the set until the technical timeout, and then they led 16-15, and eventually they went up 20-18 and won the second set 25-21. Now some of the commentators were saying that the sets were pretty much one-sided, but I think they were a lot closer than one would appear. It's just that the Stunners were just pulling away. Or actually, no, I don't think it was the commentators that were saying that. It was Larry B that said it. He said that the sets were all pretty much one-sided between the Ramblers and the Stunners. But it was a lot more closer than it appeared to be. Like, the Stunners just kept winning the points that truly mattered the most. Then in set number 3, it was anyone's set, as both teams were just not giving up. This was the closest set of the match, as the Stunners led 20-18, and they kept getting a lot of hustle plays and hustle points, and eventually the Ramblers tied the set at 22-22. Then with the score tied at 23-23, the Stunners had match point number 1, but then the Ramblers were able to dodge one match point, and then and then eventually the Stunners had match point number 2 and ended the match off of a double block. The commentator said it was a triple block, but I didn't see a triple block. Either way, the final point was registered by Nick Amato and Matt Hilling. Nick Amato is a former guest, or was a former guest on Set Point, so I personally was happy for him. It was kind of tough to pick against the Stunners, though. I picked the Ramblers to win, for those that didn't listen to my video clips on the Set Point account, but I picked the Ramblers to win. I ain't given a certain number of sets, but I will just say this: the Stunners really stunned everybody as they won that third set 26-24, winning the match in 3 sets. Everyone was very surprised that the Stunners beat the Ramblers in 3 sets. Now, I also got to give the benefit of the doubt to the Stunners, considering they have a very talented team, and they beat the Ramblers in the second event of the regular season. I just didn't think that the Ramblers were going to get buzzsawed, because going into this match, the Ramblers' only losses were to the OC Stunners and the Dallas Tornadoes, which didn't even qualify for the playoffs. But in that Dallas Tornadoes match, the Ramblers weren't even at full strength. Regardless, I will say this about the Stunners: they really were a well-oiled machine. Ever since they went 0-3 due to their injuries and whatnot, they won, what was it, 8 out of their last 10. Their only loss, I think, came against the Stingers, I want to say. It was either them or the Tyrants. Regardless, to win 8 out of your last 10, including the postseason, is very amazing. And it's absolutely just... And to overcome an 0-3 start is absolutely just... I'm not going to say the word amazing. It takes a lot of grit and determination, because when you start 0-3, you get all the doubt creeping in your mind, but then the Stunners just put their heads down, and then they got everyone back healthy, and then they eventually were crowned champions. And I was very impressed. And to me, I think it speaks to high volumes of how good the Stunners are compared to what they were back in event number 1. So I hope, and I really am happy for the Stunners, not just because I'm an Orange County guy, but because to overcome a bad start to the season, it takes a lot. Like, mentally, it's draining when you lose, and then to start putting together win after win after win after win is quite amazing. So I gotta give it up to the Stunners. As for the Ramblers, it was disappointing that they lost on the biggest stage. Like, I thought they were going to put it together as... Again, they were 7-2, and they were the number 1 seed in the NVA playoffs. Unfortunately, they just fell short to the Stunners. Now, the Stunners were hot as of late, but again, I thought with Brandon Rattray and a bunch of other talented players, I thought the Ramblers were just going to take it by storm. But unfortunately, the Stunners stunned everybody. As Gina says, update on the home run derby. Update on the home run derby. Matt Olson got 23 home runs and could not tie Trey Mancini. Okay. Thanks, Gina. I appreciate the update on the home run derby. I'll probably be talking about that on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, which that's actually going to be the 50th episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. So there's that. To end the NVA for this season, it was a fun season. I'm glad to see the NVA is starting to grow. They went from 8 teams to eventually 10 teams, and then they got to expand their playoffs. Instead of just having everyone partake or having just 4 teams participate in it, they got to have many teams participate, and a lot of teams showed lots of growth, like Southern Exposure. And the Stunners, which lost in the November of 2020 event to the Utah Stingers in the championship match, really showed their chops, and they really showed who they truly were. And I gotta give it up to Coach Daryl Adams. He really did a fantastic job. And again, overcoming an 0-3 start, it's tough to do, especially when you're just limited to 9 matches, because 3 losses means you've lost 1/3 of your games. Luckily, in the NVA, 8 teams go to the postseason. Hopefully, maybe more teams will be added, and then maybe more playoff spots will be added. But for right now, luckily 8 teams can go to the playoffs, 4 from each conference. So, all in all, it was a fun season in the NVA. I hope we get to see more teams added. I like to see the entire game of volleyball continue to grow, because the fact that we're even seeing teams like Dallas having a team is quite amazing. Like, obviously California will have teams. Texas has, obviously, the Texas Tyrants and the Dallas Tornadoes. Southern Exposure, which is based out of Orlando, Florida, has a team, and it showed its chops. And then the Vegas Ramblers, mainly comprised of California players, really showed their stuff as well. But regardless, I'm looking forward to the next NVA season. I hate how I missed the first part of it due to the NCAA women's volleyball season happening, and the NCAA men's volleyball season happening, and the NCAA beach volleyball season happening, and then work happening for me. Regardless, I'm glad I got to catch the NVA, and I got to get up to speed for the most part. Hopefully I will have a proper NVA season, but I'm glad to see that the NVA is still up and running, and I'm glad to see fans back in the stands. So there was that, and I also got to give a shout out to the entire NVA on an outstanding season. They're still trying to grow the sport of their game. They're trying to grow their league, but it's still in its it's not like in its infant stages, but it's still like in its toddler stages. Soon, when it gets older, maybe it'll start to be televised nationally instead of on YouTube. So I can't wait to see what the NBA has in store for everyone. So that is that for the NBA, which means another season of volleyball is in the books. As now I got to find what else I'm going to be talking about. I'm just kidding. I know what I'm going to be talking about going forward. Also, we're obviously going to be talking about the Tokyo Olympics coming up. Then we've got the AVP coming up, and it's beach season. And then we're going to have NCAA women's volleyball again. And then after NCAA women's volleyball, we're going to have NCAA men's volleyball, and then beach volleyball is going to follow. Then we're probably going to have another season of the NVA. And then once NCAA men's and beach volleyball is done, the NVA will take over, and then the cycle will just start all over again. So, fun stuff. As now let's jump to some transfer news, as I actually don't know where we last left off. Oh, now I remember. We last left off on Pani Napoleon, who transferred from Hawaii to UCLA. So last week we only had 5 transfer news. This week, well, dating from today all the way from last Monday, after I did set point, we have 10 transfers. So we'll start with Darian Goins, who is transferring from LSU and transferring to Seattle. She is a redshirt sophomore, and she is a 5'8" setter. So this is kind of good for Goins, as she goes from SEC down to, I think Seattle is in the Western. Yeah, they are in the Western Athletic Conference. So that's a kind of good change of pace for her. Power 5 to non-Power 5. So good stuff for Goins. We wish her the best. Then we have Annie Cornet, who is a 6'3" freshman middle blocker. She is transferring from Boston College and transferring to TCU. So this is huge, and I don't mean that in terms of size. This is kind of big for TCU, as TCU is trying to, kind of rebuild their program. They had a promising program back in the past, but then their numbers started to dwindle, and they just didn't have the Mustangs that they did back in the day to keep up with the Baylors and the Texases. Regardless, Annie Cornet, transferring from Boston College, is quite good, as that she adds a lot more height to the Horned Frogs' front line. And also, it's good for Cornet, just because I'm not trying to say this negatively about Boston College, but Boston College just was not that good last season. They were pretty average. Let's get that out of the way. Like in the ACC, where it's competitive as heck, Boston College was not on the competitive side. They finished near the bottom of the standings, along with Wake Forest and Virginia, which didn't even finish its season and whatnot. So I understand Cornet transferring, but at least she now has this fresh start with a new team and a new conference, and we'll see if Cornet can actually fit with the Horned Frogs. So there's that right there. Then we have Grand Canyon's KJ Adams, who is transferring from Grand Canyon over to Texas Tech. KJ Adams is a 6-foot libero/outside hitter. She's a graduate student, so she'll have one last year of eligibility left. She was the libero of the year from the Western Athletic Conference, so she's going from non-Power 5 to Power 5, and we'll see what happens with Texas Tech. Like, Texas Tech isn't really the most impressive team, especially compared to like Kansas State and especially Baylor and especially Texas, as Adams is gonna look to try to help improve the Red Rangers' record. Like, Texas Tech wasn't bad, but in a conference that is well dominated by Baylor and Texas, it's basically no contest. So there's that right there. But we'll see if KJ Adams can turn the Red Rangers around. Then we have Mamie Keith Gerard, who is transferring from San Jose State. I'm sorry, Gina, as she is transferring to Ball State in Indianapolis. So she went from NorCal to Indy. So she went from repping to NorCal Sports to High Octane Entertainment. Definitely do check out High Octane Entertainment every Saturday at 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern Time. As we also say hello to David Crooks. He says, "What's good?" Nothing much, just going over some transfer news. Hopefully we'll be seeing some players transfer to Alabama. But for right now, Mamie Keith Gerard is a 5'10 setter, and she's a junior. She is transferring to Ball State from San Jose State. Then we have Abby Bottomley, who I think was just recently named one of the all-AVCA academics, or some sort of she got some sort of academic award. She is transferring from High Point University to Creighton, as she is a graduate student and she is a libero. Unfortunately, her height's not listed, but oh well, she's a libero. I imagine she's not overly tall. But that's kind of big for Creighton, as Creighton they're one of those pretty good teams. They don't get a whole lot of love because they don't play in a Power 5 conference. So with Bottomley, I think they'll be improved. And she was an All-American for High Point, and she was the Big South Player of the Year. So Creighton getting that type of player is really huge for them, especially since Creighton is looking to get back or have a deep playoff run, NCAA tournament run, because last year I think I want to say Creighton was the team that lost to Morehead State, which won its first NCAA tournament game. So there's that. Then we have South Carolina's Jess Vastine, who is transferring from South Carolina and transferring to Grand Canyon to play beach volleyball. She is a 6'1 player, as she is also a graduate student, so Vastine will be joining the Lopes, as she'll be going from down south to the Cactus State. So there's that. Then we have Allie Tramey, who is transferring from Alabama. I'm sorry, Davidson, I gotta forewarn you about this, as Allie Tramey is transferring from Alabama to Illinois State. She is a 6'2 middle blocker, and she's only a freshman, so yeah, Bama's kind of been losing out on a few players, which has kind of been a bummer for them, but who knows, maybe they'll get a good freshman class this upcoming season. So they'll need to be as competitive as possible, because the SEC is starting to heat up. Like, that conference is starting to get better and better, especially since two of those teams were were the first 4 teams out. So there's that. But Allie Traim is transferring from Alabama to Illinois State. Then we have Sam Gomez, who is transferring from southeastern Louisiana and transferring to UAB. She is a graduate student who is 6 foot and a middle blocker, so she'll use her final year of eligibility for UAB. So there's that right there. And then we have Christine Jarman, who is transferring from Virginia to Florida Atlantic, and she'll be playing indoor volleyball. She won't be playing beach volleyball, which is what FAU is known for when it comes to volleyball, but she is playing indoor volleyball. She is a 6 foot outside hitter, and she's a graduate student. I understand why she transferred from Virginia, just because Virginia didn't have a great season. They eventually canceled the remainder of their season due to COVID and whatnot, which was disappointing, unfortunately. But I understand why, and honestly, Virginia is just not that competitive team in the ACC. And I totally understand why she transferred. Maybe she also wanted a new change of pace, but now she goes from ACC all the way down to Florida. So there's that. And then lastly, this one's kind of the big one. We have the All Pac-12 performer Caroline Schaefer transferring from Cal. Gina, if you're still listening, I apologize for this. Caroline Schaefer is transferring from Cal to play for USC, the national champion. So, once again, Caroline Schaefer is transferring from Cal over to USC. She is a 6 foot beach volleyball player, and she's a graduate student. So, her swan song is basically going to be with the USC Trojans, as she's going to help the Trojans hopefully repeat as NCAA champions. So we'll see what happens with the Trojans and Schaefer going forward. But that is all for the college volleyball transfers. Unless I get something that comes in later on the show, that's going to do it for the college volleyball transfers. We're actually going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we will have some schedule breakdowns for this upcoming NCAA women's volleyball season. And then we'll talk some Team USA U20 team. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after a word from these commercials.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Rose Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
welcome back to Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. You can check out all of our amazing shows on different streaming platforms such as Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and YouTube, and many others as well. As this show, Set Point, is actually also on iHeartRadio and those other streaming platforms as well. I didn't even know about this, so if you have those platforms, definitely do check out Set Point whenever you can. I try to do the best as I can when it comes to everything, when it comes to Set Point, so there's that right there. Now we are on to segment number 2 of Set Point. So let's get into some NCAA women's volleyball news. I already talked about the transfer news. Let's talk some NCAA volleyball news. So this news comes from July 8th, which was all the way back from Thursday. So Angelica Lundqvist, I'm probably butchering that, but Angelica Lundqvist, the head beach volleyball coach of the University of Hawaii, and the associate coach of the Hawaii women's indoor volleyball program, is stepping down effective July 20th. So today is Monday, July 12th, so she will be stepping down in 8 more days. So she is stepping down. It doesn't really give the exact reason, but here she says in a quote, "This was a very difficult decision, and it's heartbreaking to say goodbye. Returning to my alma mater to coach was a dream come true. I'm truly grateful to Robin, who is the head coach of the Hawaii women's volleyball team, and the administration for giving me this opportunity. It has been an honor and privilege to represent the University of Hawaii, the state, and the people of Hawaii, and I am so blessed to call Hawaii home. However, right now it's important for me to be close to family in Sweden. I give all my aloha to our Rainbow Wahine players, coaches, and staff, and also extend a warm mahalo to Nui Loa." I have no idea who that is, I'm sorry. "Nui Loa and a warm mahalo Nui Loa to our fans for welcoming me back to Hawaii a second time. I know both the indoor and beach teams will have spectacular years ahead of them, and I look forward to cheering them on." And then as of right now, Evan Silberstein will be the interim head coach for the beach volleyball team until the search is complete for the beach volleyball team. I don't know who's going to be their associate head coach for the women's volleyball team, but the head coach is still going to be the head coach is going to be Robin, I forget her last name, I want to get this correct, Robin Amau. So that's who's still the head coach. So Robin Amau is still the head coach. Unfortunately, Angelica Lundqvist is stepping down. So there's that, and I wish her the best. So that's pretty much all the other volleyball news that happened. So now let's jump into the NCAA women's volleyball schedule releases. So we have plenty of schedule releases going on, but I'm only going to do 5 for this week. Otherwise, this would be a longer schedule release than normal, or a longer episode than normal. So we'll start with my neck of the woods, being Long Beach State. Now, I just recently graduated from Long Beach State, but I am hoping I could still go to some Long Beach State volleyball matches. We'll see, though. So Long Beach State kicks off its season on August 14th in its black and gold scrimmage, and then on August 21st, which is a Saturday, Long Beach State will be playing Pepperdine in a scrimmage. Not a scrimmage, it's an exhibition match, so it shouldn't count for anything. So I'm hoping to go to that one just because former Set Point guest Steve Astor is a assistant coach for Set Point, and I want to Steve Astor, the assistant coach of Pepperdine Women's Volleyball, was a former guest on Set Point, so I'm hoping to see him there. So we'll see what happens, but that match is slated for 5 p.m., or that exhibition is slated for 5 p.m. Then Long Beach State starts its season out, its official season off in the Boise State tournament. On Friday, they play Montana State, and then later on that day, which is August 27th, Long Beach plays Boise State. Then on Saturday, Long Beach State closes out the Boise State tournament with a match against Dixie State, and then that's the Boise State tournament. Then on September 2nd all the way to September 4th, Long Beach State returns home to the Pyramid to play in the Long Beach State tournament. I thought they had something, it was called something else, but I guess they just renamed it to the Long Beach State Tournament. I thought it was called like the A6 Challenge or something. I don't know. Regardless, Long Beach State kicks off the Long Beach State Tournament against UCLA. That match is going to be fun. I am really looking forward to that. And I actually saw this one leaked as I was talked about UCLA's women's volleyball schedule from last week. As I saw that this Long Beach State UCLA matchup was going to be slated for September 2nd, a Thursday, I really want to go to this matchup. Like, anything Long Beach State versus UCLA is fun, and I'm looking forward to that. I really want to go. I don't care what the circumstance is. Like, fans should be back in the stands for sure. So there is that right there for Long Beach State's first home matchup. And then later on in the Long Beach State tournament on Friday, September 3rd, Long Beach State plays Georgia Tech at 7 p.m., which I imagine Georgia Tech is going to be really good. And I also want to go to that match too. So I want to see if I can go to these matches. It's going to be a lot though, just because I'm no longer a student and I might have to come as a independent journalist or reporter or anything like that. Regardless, I will find a way. And then on Saturday, Long Beach State ends the Long Beach State tournament with a match against Portland State. That match is slated for 5 p.m. Pacific time, and that's going to be on September 4th, which is a Saturday, so there's that right there. And then, by the way, I also should mention the Long Beach State tournament will have Georgia Tech and UCLA playing each other at 3 p.m. Pacific time, which that's going to be a marquee matchup. That's most likely going to be a ranked-on-ranked matchup. So I'm looking forward to seeing UCLA and Georgia Tech, but I'm also looking forward to seeing Long Beach State do their thing, hopefully. So there is that. Then also Long Beach State will play in the Washington State tournament. Unfortunately, the opponents have not been finalized. I can already tell you that they're going to play Washington State. No, they're going to play Washington instead. Obviously, Washington State is going to be playing Long Beach State in the Washington State tournament. So, there's that. But everything is still to be determined. All the matches are going to be played in Pullman, Washington. So, there's that. Then on September 14th, which is a Tuesday, Long Beach State returns home to the Pyramid to play San Diego State. That is slated for 7 p.m. Then on Saturday, September 18th, Long Beach State will play the University of San Diego at the Pyramid at 4 p.m. So I imagine this is kind of going to be like a San Diego two-step. So that's cool, considering Long Beach actually played the San Diego teams the last time Long Beach State women's volleyball had a season, because last year there was no season because COVID and whatnot. So there was that. Then after the matchup against San Diego, Long Beach State kicks off Big West Conference play at home against Cal Poly. That is slated for September 24th, a Friday. That's going to be a fun little matchup. Long Beach State actually beat Cal Poly at home on its senior night a couple years ago, or the last time Long Beach State had a season. So there is that right there. And then on Saturday, Long Beach State is going to play will play Cal State Bakersfield at 4 p.m. Pacific time, which is September 25th. So they've got a back-to-back matchup right there after they get 6 days off from their last match from San Diego. And then something that is coming back that we didn't get to see in the 2019 season when it came into the Big West Conference, Tuesday matches. So Long Beach State will play Cal State Fullerton on September 28th, which is a Tuesday, and that'll also be at the Walter Pyramid. Then after that, Long Beach State will have a 3-game road trip starting on Friday, October 1st, where Long Beach State will travel to Hawaii. So that is slated for a time to be determined, but it's probably going to be at like 7 p.m. Hawaii time, 10 p.m. California time. Then 1 week later, Long Beach State returns back to California, but this time to play UC Santa Barbara in Santa Barbara. That is going to be Friday with a time to be determined, October 8th. Then Saturday, October 9th, Long Beach State will travel to Northridge to take on CSUN, or Cal State Northridge. That's also a time to be determined. Then, after their 3-game roadie, Long Beach State will return home to play UC San Diego on Friday, October 15th. That is slated for 7 p.m. And then the day after that, Long Beach State will hit the road to Irvine and play UC Irvine on Saturday, October 16th, with a time to be determined. Then on Friday, October 22nd, Long Beach State will play UC Riverside at the Pyramid at 7 p.m. And then the day after, Long Beach State will play UC Davis at the Pyramid at 7 p.m. as well. Then I imagine the second half of conference play gets kicked off on this day, as Friday, October 29th, Long Beach State plays at Cal State Bakersfield. That's actually going to be the start of a 3-game road trip. So Friday, October 29th, Long Beach State plays at Cal State Bakersfield. Then the day after, Long Beach State will hit the road to San Luis Obispo to play Cal Poly. That time is also to be determined. Then Tuesday, November 2nd, Long Beach State plays at Cal State Fullerton. That is also a time to be determined. It looks like Long Beach State and Cal State Fullerton are going to be playing each other on Tuesday, so that's pretty cool. Then on Saturday, November 6th, we have Long Beach State returning home to play Hawaii at 7 p.m. Pacific time, which is going to be 4 p.m. Hawaii time, as that's going to be on a Saturday, and that's going to be a fun matchup, because Long Beach State versus Hawaii is pretty much, in volleyball, is very fun and very competitive. Not just in men's volleyball, but in women's volleyball and maybe in beach volleyball too, so there's that. Then Friday, November 12th, Long Beach State will still remain at home to play Cal State Northridge. That match is slated for 7 p.m. Then on Saturday, November 13th, the day after they play CSUN, Long Beach State plays UC Santa Barbara at 7 p.m., which is a Saturday. Now, Long Beach State versus UC Santa Barbara at the Pyramid is kind of an interesting matchup. Why? Because Santa Barbara really struggles to defeat Long Beach State at the Pyramid. I don't know why. It seems like no matter how good of a team UC Santa Barbara has, they never, ever, ever seem to be are able to beat Long Beach State at the Pyramid. So it's going to be a fun little matchup. Maybe we'll see Santa Barbara break the Pyramid curse. I'm not sure, but that's going to be the second to last home matchup for Long Beach State. Then on Friday, November 19th, Long Beach State will hit the road to good old San Diego, or La Jolla, to face UC San Diego. That is a time to be determined. Then the day after, Saturday, November 20th, Long Beach State heads back home to take on UC Irvine, which I imagine is going to be their senior night, depending on how good UC Irvine is. Maybe they'll have their senior night against CSUN or Riverside. I'm not certain, but it all depends. So once again, Saturday, November 20th is when Long Beach State plays UC Irvine at home. Then on Wednesday, November 24th, Long Beach State hits the road to Davis, aka NorCal, to face UC Davis. That match is at 3 p.m. Pacific time, so that's an interesting little matchup. 3 p.m.? Probably because it's Thanksgiving week. So then lastly, for Long Beach State, they close out the season on the road against UC Riverside on Saturday, November 27th. That is a match with a time to be determined, and that is that for the Long Beach State schedule. So I'm really looking forward to this Long Beach State schedule. I hope I can make more matches so I could provide like maybe video coverage on IE Sports Radio, well, through my Set Point Twitter account. So we'll see. So that's that for the Long Beach State matchup. Now let's jump to the SEC and go over the Tennessee schedule. So Tennessee, for those that remember, they were one of 4 teams that were the first 4 out of the NCAA tournament. And that's partially because the NCAA tournament had a 48-team bracket as opposed to the traditional 64. If the NCAA gets their head out of their rear ends and has a 64 bracket tournament instead of 48, Tennessee for sure makes the NCAA tournament because they had a pair of standout wins against Missouri, and unfortunately, Tennessee just did not have enough to make the NCAA tournament, and losses to Georgia and Alabama really hurt them. So we'll see if Tennessee can make the NCAA tournament as Tennessee kicks off its season in the Tennessee Classic on Friday, August 27th against Texas Tech. Then on Saturday they have a doubleheader as they play East Tennessee State at 12:30 p.m., which I assume is Tennessee time, and then they play Texas Tech at 7 p.m. And then later on in the day, Tennessee takes on North Carolina State at 6:30 p.m. Again, it doesn't say if it's Pacific time or not. I imagine it's probably going to be Tennessee time, which is probably Eastern, so we'll see. Then this is where Tennessee's schedule starts to pick up, as Friday, September 3rd, Tennessee plays Baylor at 6:30 p.m. And then then on Sunday, September 5th, Tennessee plays Pitt at 1 p.m., which that's going to be a very fun match. Like, the fact that Tennessee is playing 2 very talented teams in Baylor and Pitt is really going to test to see if Tennessee belongs in the echelon of NCAA tournament team. We'll see, though. And then September 10th and September 12th, Tennessee plays Morehead State. The first match is going to be at Morehead, Kentucky, and then the second match is going to be at home back in the Thompson Bowling Arena. The first matchup is slated for 6:30 p.m., while the second matchup is slated for 4 p.m. Then in the Stacey Clark Classic, which will be held in West Lafayette, Indianapolis, Tennessee will take on Jacksonville State on Friday at 12:30 p.m. Then later that day, Tennessee will face Purdue of Fort Wayne at 5 p.m. So this is actually going to be hosted by Purdue. And speaking of which, Saturday, September 18th, Tennessee will play at Purdue at 3 p.m. So between Purdue, Baylor, and Pitt, those are their very key non-conference matches. I really think that's going to really test them today. So we'll test them this season. So there's that. Then Tennessee kicks off its whatchamacallit season. It's a conference schedule with 5 straight conference games starting on September 25th and Sunday, September 26th. Tennessee plays Arkansas. The first match is slated for 4 p.m., while the second match is slated for 12 p.m. As Arkansas was the other SEC team that finished in the first 4 out. So there's that right there. So that's going to be a fun matchup between Tennessee and Arkansas. It could also be a game breaker for both teams, as that one matchup could determine which team has the upper hand over that one other team. Because if it does boil down to the 3rd and 4th place teams and maybe the 5th place team in the SEC, that could prove to be the team that finishes the last 4 in or the first 4 out. So there's that. Then on Wednesday, September 29th, Tennessee plays Auburn at 8 p.m., I imagine this is like Eastern time, so that's probably 5 p.m. Pacific time. Then on Saturday, October 2nd and Sunday, October 3rd, Tennessee plays Texas A&M. One match is at 5 p.m., which is the first match, and then the second match is at 1 p.m. And this is Tennessee time, so So there's that. Then Tennessee hits the road for a 5-game road trip as Tennessee travels to South Carolina to take on the Gamecocks. The first matchup is slated for Friday, October 8th at 7 p.m. And then the second matchup is slated for Saturday, October 9th at 5 p.m. Then Friday, October 15th, Tennessee plays at Georgia at 7 p.m. And then next Saturday and Sunday, following that Georgia match, which is the October 23rd and 24th, Tennessee plays at LSU at 6 p.m. and 3 p.m. Again, this is Eastern time, so there's that. Then Tennessee returns home on Wednesday, October 27th to face a big rival in Kentucky, which is the reigning NCAA champion. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Tennessee can bring. Like the last time the two teams met, Tennessee gave Kentucky all they could handle. They did take a set off them, and they made 2 sets very tough for Kentucky to win, but unfortunately Tennessee just could not close the deal. But maybe, just maybe we'll see Tennessee show some toughness. Anyway, that match against Kentucky is slated for Wednesday, October 27th at 6 p.m. Then Wednesday, November 3rd, which is 1 week after, Tennessee will head down to Gainesville, Florida to take on Florida. Then on Sunday, November 7th, Tennessee will take on Ole Miss at 2 p.m. And then Tennessee will hit the road twice for a 2-game series against Mississippi State. The first matchup is slated for Saturday, November 13th, with a time to be determined. And then the second matchup is on Sunday, November 14th at 1 p.m. Again, this is 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and there's that for the Mississippi State series. Then Tennessee will return home to take on Alabama twice. The first matchup is slated for Thursday, November 18th at 6:30 p.m. And then the second matchup is slated for Friday, November 19th with the same time. So there's that right there. And then, surprisingly and strangely enough, Tennessee closes out the season on the road against Missouri, which is Wednesday, November 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So it's strange that Tennessee only gets to play Missouri once, and they only get to play Kentucky once, so I don't know why they're only playing some of these opponents one time. Maybe it has something to do with the region. I'm not entirely certain, but there's that. And that Missouri matchup could prove to be groundbreaking, because if Tennessee does win that, and Missouri is kind of borderline of NCAA tournament team and non-NCAA tournament team, it might just be between those two to get one of the few at-large spots in the NCAA tournament. So there's Tennessee's schedule. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Tennessee can do, because honestly, Tennessee has a good team, and they really showed it last year. Unfortunately, they had one too many losses to subpar teams. So there's that for Tennessee. Now let's jump over to the fun teams. Let's jump over to Creighton. So Creighton kicks off its season with an exhibition match against Iowa State. Then the official season begins for Creighton as they kick off their season on Friday, October 27th against UMKC, or as I call them, the University of Kansas City. That match will be played at 10 a.m., which I imagine that might be Pacific time. If not, no, which I think that might be Eastern time, because it's in Omaha and whatnot. Like, I'm not entirely certain. So, we'll see. I probably just won't read the times and whatnot. So, Creighton plays UMKC to start off the Missouri Invitational. Then, later that day, Creighton plays the University of St. Louis. Once again, this will be played in Columbia, Missouri, and the team hosting it is the University of Missouri. Speaking of which, Missouri plays Creighton on Saturday, August 28th. So that Creighton-Missouri match will be a fun little matchup. It'll be between two NCAA teams that made the tournament last year. Missouri made it out of the first round before getting bounced, while Creighton lost in the first round to Morehead State, so there's that. Then Creighton heads down to Lexington, Kentucky for the Bluegrass Battle. Creighton plays USC in their first matchup on September 3rd. Then on September 4th, Creighton has a doubleheader, starting with the reigning champion, University of Kentucky. Then they close out the Bluegrass battle against Northern Iowa. And then on September 8th, and this kind of got leaked into Nebraska's schedule, Creighton will be playing Nebraska, which will be at Creighton, aka the Chi Health Center in Omaha. So it's kind of not going to really matter since Nebraska is in Omaha, so we'll see. Then Creighton has the Blue Jay Invitational, which is kind of their tournament. They play SMU on Friday, September 10th, and then they have a doubleheader on Saturday, September 11th, starting with Illinois, and then ending with Nebraska of Omaha. Not Nebraska, the Cornhuskers, Nebraska of Omaha. And then closing off their regular season schedule, they take on Wyoming in the Shocker Volleyball Classic hosted by Wichita State. Creighton plays Wyoming on Friday, September 17th. Then on Saturday, September 18th, they play South Dakota in their first match, and then they close out the match against Wichita State. So there's that right there. Then Creighton kicks off Big East Conference play with a match against Butler on September 24th on the road, and then Creighton still remains on the road at Xavier on September 25th, which is a Saturday. Then Friday, October 1st, Creighton plays at St. John's, and then Saturday, October 2nd, Creighton plays at Seton Hall. Then Creighton finally returns home as they play DePaul on Friday, October 8th, and Marquette on Sunday, October 10th. That Marquette matchup is going to be very fun because those two teams are big-time rivals when it comes to the Big East Conference. So that could be the difference between who gets the number 1 seed in the Big East tournament and who gets the number 2 seed. But you also can't sleep on St. John's. So there's that. Then Saturday, Creighton plays at UConn, which is Saturday, October 16th, and then on Sunday, October 17th, Creighton plays at Providence. Then Creighton returns home on Friday, October 22nd to play Georgetown, and then Sunday, October 24th, Creighton will play Villanova at home. Then on Friday, October 29th, Creighton will play at Marquette, followed by a Saturday, October 30th matchup against DePaul. Then in November, we have Creighton playing Xavier on Friday, November 5th, and Sunday, November 7th, Creighton will play Butler. Then on Friday, November 12th, Creighton will play at Georgetown, and then on Saturday, November 13th, Creighton will play at Villanova. And then their last 2 regular season home games will be obviously at home, as Creighton will play Seton Hall on Friday, November 19th, and then Creighton will play St. John's on Sunday, November 21st. And then the Big East Conference Championship will be on Friday, November 26th, and will conclude on Saturday, November 27th. And this is basically a 4-team matchup, as it's only the top 4 teams in the regular season conference, and whoever wins automatically goes to the tournament, while everyone else has to be an at-large team. So there's that right there, and I like how they say they put the NCAA tournament down as they put down campus sites, and then they put regionals, and then the Final Four is going to be played at Columbus, Ohio. So there's that right there. So that is Creighton's schedule. So we only have 2 more schedules after this, and then we'll jump into the Team USA Women's Volleyball U20 news. So next schedule we have is Pitt's schedule. So this was just released today, and I'm really looking forward to Pitt's schedule. So Pitt has a very promising team. They have Serena Gray, who just came in as a transfer from Penn State, and then they return Kayla Lund, and then they also return Sabrina Starks, who just recently celebrated her birthday, so happy birthday to her. And then they also return Chiamaka Nwokolo and Chinazi Ende, and then they return many other players as well. I really think Pitt has the most promising team, especially in terms of players returning. So if there's a year that Pitt has to win it, it's probably this upcoming year. But they have stiff competition elsewhere, so we'll see. So Pitt kicks off its season on October 21st, which is a Saturday, at Cincinnati. And then Pitt opens up its official season in the Carolina Classic as Pitt plays Rice on Friday, October 27th. That's going to be a very fun matchup right there. Rice is one of the more underrated teams, and I think, to me, Rice can give Pitt a run for their money. We'll see, though. I imagine there's going to be rust between the two teams, but I feel Pitt is going to be challenged early on. And also, on the second day of the Carolina Classic, Pitt will play Washington State in the first of their two matches, and then they'll close out the Carolina Classic against South Carolina, the home school. So that's cool right there. Then Pitt has they have two non-conference matchups. They're both actually going to be played at Tennessee, so I imagine this is going to be played at the University of Tennessee. So Pitt plays Baylor on Saturday, September 4th. That's going to be a very, very fun matchup, just because Pitt is a very good team, and then Baylor made the Sweet 16, but they do return a good amount of their players as well. I think Yasiona Presley is going to returns as well. Regardless, that Baylor-Pitt matchup screams to high volumes. And then they also got to make note that Baylor returns, or actually brings in Avery Skinner, who transferred from Kentucky. So that's going to be a very, very entertaining matchup. Kayla Lund versus Avery Skinner. That is basically primetime volleyball there. That should be on ESPN. What the heck, ESPN? Anyway, then on Sunday, September 5th, Pitt plays at Tennessee, who is basically hosting this little shindig. And then Pitt hosts its Panther Challenge, which is basically the Pitt tournament. On Friday, September 10th, Pitt plays High Point. That was a team that made the NCAA tournament and won their first ever NCAA tournament game last season. That is actually slated for 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And shout out to Pitt, who put down what region time this is. All their times are in Eastern Time. So 5 p.m. Pacific Time is basically 2 p.m. Pacific Time. So shout out to Pitt for doing that. I appreciate you, Pitt. Anyway, later that day in the Panther Challenge, Pitt plays BYU on Friday, September 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Then on Sunday, Pitt plays Bowling Green on Saturday, September 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Then Pitt travels to Moorhead, Kentucky for the Comfort Invitational. I like how it's said. It says Comfort Invitational, as it's basically the word comfort. It's basically the Comfort Inn and then the dash and says Invitational. Moorhead State, you are too funny. As Pitt plays Moorhead State on Friday, September 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Basically, a NCAA veteran versus a team that made the NCAA tournament last year and managed to win their first NCAA game. So, good for you. And then Pitt plays Marshall on September 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So, that's that for the Pitt non-conference schedule. Then Pitt opens up conference play at North Carolina on Friday, September 24th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Then on Sunday, September 26th, Pitt plays at NC State at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. They won't have to go that far because they're in North Carolina after facing North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Then they won't have to go too far when it comes to going to Raleigh. Regardless, Pitt won't have to go too far when it comes to traveling. Anyway, Pitt then returns home to the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse to take on the University of Virginia on Wednesday, September 29th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Then on Friday, October 1st at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Pitt plays Duke. And then 1 week after, Pitt plays Clemson on Friday, October 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Then Pitt's schedule starts to pick up a little as Pitt plays Georgia Tech at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse, which is their humble abode, on Sunday, October 10th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Then on Friday, October 15th, Pitt hits the road to Coral Gables, Florida, to take on Miami. I'm surprised they don't play at... I'm surprised the gymnasium that Miami plays at isn't in Miami. Mind equals blown. So Pitt plays at Miami on Friday, October 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Then on Sunday, October 17th, Pitt plays at Florida State at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Pitt will luckily be in Florida, so they won't have to travel too much. They won't have to go on a plane, but they're just going to have to travel on bus, so it is what it is. Then Pitt continues its long road trip as they travel to South Bend to take on Notre Dame, as that is slated for Friday, October 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That's going to be a very fun matchup between Pitt and Notre Dame. I think those are the two teams to beat in the ACC. Pitt fell short. I think they were like the second-place team in the ACC, and then Notre Dame was the third-place team. Both teams returned quite a bit of talent, as I think that it's going to boil down to those two. So there's that. And then on Sunday, October 24th, Pitt plays at Louisville in Louisville, Kentucky at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's also going to be a very fun matchup. Louisville is the reigning ACC champion, and Pitt is going to look to get back on top of the ACC, as Louisville is very talented. And then Pitt finally returns home to its humble abode in the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse to take on Wake Forest on Friday, October 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Then on Sunday, October 31st, Pitt plays Virginia Tech at home at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by a Friday, November 5th matchup against Syracuse at 7 p.m. And then Pitt concludes its homestand against Boston College on Sunday, November 7th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Then this matchup really kind of is just in there for some odd reason. Pitt plays at American, which is not a conference game. It's played on Tuesday, November 9th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I understand why Pitt is playing American in the middle of its conference play. This is totally strange. Maybe they wanted to play American, but they just couldn't fit it in their September schedule or August schedule. Kind of strange. Oh well. And then Pitt continues its road trip on Friday, November 12th at Syracuse at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Then the following week, Pitt travels to Georgia Tech to take on Georgia Tech, they go to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech. That is slated for Friday, November 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Then on Sunday, November 21st, Pitt travels to Clemson to take on Clemson at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Pitt closes out the season in a big way as they face the reigning ACC champion Louisville on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time in the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse. I kind of hate that Pitt doesn't get to play Notre Dame twice like they did last year because of ACC pod play, but it is what it is. Maybe it's a regional thing, and maybe Pitt is up east. Well, then again, Indianapolis isn't that far. It's not that far down from Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania. Regardless, I want to see two Pitt versus Notre Dame matches, but beggars can't be choosers, so there's that. So that's that for the Pitt schedule. Now we jump to my favorite schedule, Wisconsin, the reigning number 1 seed. Now here's the thing for Wisconsin. They actually released their schedule in 2 different ways. They released it via the regular way, in just the regular press release, and they also released it via graphics with the picture, and then they also released their schedule via TikTok. That was very clever. It was just their non-conference matches, mind you, as Wisconsin. I can only imagine what Wisconsin would do if they released their whole schedule via TikTok. It would be a very long TikTok, so I gotta give Wisconsin an A for F, a very big A for creativity when it came to their schedule release. So, Wisconsin kicks off its season at home against TCU. which is Friday, October 27th. Time is to be determined. I think, well, no, most of their times are finalized, but they have yet to be determined. So there's that. So Wisconsin plays TCU on Friday, August 27th, and then the day after, Wisconsin plays number 13 Baylor on Saturday, August 28th. That's going to be a very fun matchup. This looks like the Big 10, Big 12 crossover, as Minnesota is also playing Baylor and TCU as well. So that's going to be fun. And then Wisconsin returns home back to they stay at the UW Fieldhouse to take on Dayton. The Wisconsin and Dayton will face each other on Thursday, September 2nd at 6:30 p.m., which I imagine is like Eastern time, Eastern or Midwest time. And then Wisconsin will be playing Dayton on Friday, September 3rd at 7 p.m., which is their time. And again, this will be at the UW Fieldhouse. Then the week after, Wisconsin will be staying home at the UW Fieldhouse to take on Kentucky. That'll be on Friday, September 10th, with a time to be determined. That Wisconsin-Kentucky matchup is going to be very fun. This is probably going to be the matchup that we wish we all could have seen in the NCAA tournament, but we didn't. So there's that right there. I'm really excited for that Kentucky-Wisconsin matchup, especially since Wisconsin returns most of its players. I really look forward to seeing what Kentucky can do. They do lose quite a bit of players from last year's team, and Wisconsin does lose some players, but it is what it is. And then Wisconsin finally hits the road to take on Marquette. This will be played at Milwaukee, so it's kind of like the Battle of Wisconsin. So Wisconsin plays Marquette on Sunday, September 12th at 4 p.m., which I imagine is going to be Wisconsin time. Then on Friday, September 17th, Wisconsin plays, I guess it's crosstown rival Green Bay at 6 p.m., which is in Chicago. The matchup will actually be played at DeKalb, Illinois, and the home team will be Northern Illinois. Speaking of which, Northern Illinois and Wisconsin will be facing each other on Saturday, September 18th at 6 p.m., which I imagine is going to be Central Time. So, again, that's going to be at Northern Illinois. Then Wisconsin kicks off its conference schedule with a match at Maryland on Friday, September 24th. All the Big Ten matches have a time to be determined unless stated otherwise. So, just gotta get that out of the way. Then on Saturday, September 25th, Wisconsin plays at Rutgers. Friday, October 1st, Wisconsin gets its first test in the Big Ten as they play number 9 Minnesota at the UW Fieldhouse. Then on Sunday, October 3rd, Wisconsin plays at Illinois. Then Wednesday, October 6th, Wisconsin plays at home against Iowa. Then, surprisingly, having not been a full week, Wisconsin plays Illinois again on Saturday, October 9th. And then Wisconsin heads down to Michigan for the Michigan two-step as Wisconsin plays at Michigan State and on Friday, October 15th. Then on Saturday, October 16th, Wisconsin plays at Michigan. Then Wisconsin returns home on Friday, October 22nd to take on Ohio State. Then on Saturday, October 23rd, Wisconsin plays Penn State. Then on Wednesday, October 27th, Wisconsin hits the road to Lincoln, Nebraska to take on Nebraska, which is going to probably be a packed house. Then on Saturday, October 30th, Wisconsin plays at Purdue. Then on Friday, November 5th, Wisconsin plays at Northwestern. And then on Saturday, November 6th, Wisconsin plays at Iowa. Then Wisconsin will return home for a 3-game homestand starting on November 12th against number 7 Purdue. Then on Sunday, November 14th, Wisconsin will play Northwestern. Then on Friday, November 19th, Wisconsin will play Michigan State. Then Wisconsin hits the road for one little road match against Minnesota. That's going to be on Sunday, November 21st. Then on Friday, November 26th, Wisconsin takes on Nebraska at the UW Fieldhouse. And then to end its regular season, Wisconsin takes on Indiana at the UW Fieldhouse on Saturday, November 27th. So, again, times are yet to be determined, but that is the Wisconsin schedule. Wisconsin has a lot of lofty expectations, but I'm hoping for their sake they can get the job done. So now, that's it for all the schedule releases for this week. Now, finally, we have just one more bit of news to go over, and that's USA's women's volleyball U20 team getting the job done, as they finished 3-0 in pool play as they beat Turkey this past Sunday, which was really cool. And they also defeated Russia in 4 sets. So USA's women's volleyball U20 team started play on July 9th. They defeated Russia in 4 sets, 25-20, 23-25, 25-24, 25-17. Then on Saturday, July 10th, USA defeated Thailand in 3 sets. And actually, the Thailand match was on Friday, the Russia match was on Thursday, and then the Turkey match. Oh no! I'm sorry. The Russia match was on Friday, the Thailand match was on Saturday, and then the Turkey match was on Sunday. This was all happening during the NVA playoffs, as USA defeated Russia in 4 sets, and then USA defeated Thailand in straight sets, 25-15, 25-8, 25-13, and then USA defeated Turkey in 3 sets, 25-18, 27-25, and then 25-22. So USA is off to the elimination round, where hopefully they can get the job done. The team for the USA Women's U20 national team is as follows: Teran Rodriguez, a 5'7" libero from Nebraska. Then we have Elena Ogolive, a 5'9" outside hitter from Stanford. And then we have Allison Jacobs, a 5'11" outside hitter from UCLA. Then we have Cami Minor, a 6-foot setter from Stanford. Then we have Avery Carlson, a 6-foot setter from Baylor. Then we have Reagan Hope, a 6'2" middle blocker from Oregon. Then we have Jordan Middleton, a 6'2" outside hitter from USC. It says Southern California, but I imagine that's USC. So, because it's listing their college last. So, Jordan Middleton is from USC. Then we have Caroline Crawford, a 6'2" middle blocker from Kansas. So, Jayhawks right there. Then we have a 6'2" Emily Landot, a 6'2" outside hitter from Ohio State. Then we have Gabby Essex, a 6'4" middle blocker from Florida. Then we have Lindsay Krause, a 6'4" outside hitter from Nebraska. And then rounding up the team is Allie Battenhorst, a 6'4" outside hitter from Nebraska. The head coach of the team is Dan Fisher, the head coach of Pitt. And then the assistant coach is John Norman Gonkar from New Mexico. Jessica Aschenbrenner from Denver. John Wong from Texas Tech, the technical coordinator. The Dr. David Dick Jr. And then the team lead is Nicole Segura, the athlete development lead. And there's that. So... So I'll be honest, USA, I don't know who they face next, as it says here in this little, this recap match. The US and Russia finished first and second in their pool, as they will move on to Pool E for the second round, which features Brazil and Netherlands, and the first match will be on Tuesday. So I imagine the US is going to be playing Netherlands, and then the winner of that will be playing Brazil. I'm not entirely certain. I'm sorry. It doesn't really give me the whole... whatchamacallit, the whole schedule. Where's the schedule? Darn it! Regardless, I will be keeping tabs on the U.S. U20 team. This team looks pretty good, and Emily Landau is one of the reasons why, as she has really stepped up for not only Ohio State, but for Team USA as well. And she's going to be a star in the near future. So, shout out to Andrew Hagenbaugh's Ohio State Buckeyes. So I can't wait to see what Emily Landau has in store. And then we also got to see some Nebraska players, as we also got to see some other youngins like Cammie Minor, who is a Southern California product. And she is actually the daughter of Harold Minor, who is getting inducted into the USC Hall of Fame. So there's that. The last part about Harold Minor is kind of irrelevant, but I digress. So that's going to be that for the USA U20 women's volleyball team news, and that's going to be that for this episode of Set Point. So we got through quite a bit in a little over 100 minutes, as we are now approaching the 1 hour and 40-minute mark. But that's going to do it for this episode of Set Point. It is that time, ladies and gentlemen, to drop that beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you all once again for tuning in to Set Point. I really appreciate you. If you're listening live, I greatly appreciate you. If you're listening via the playback, I appreciate you. If you're listening in the wee hours of the morning, I appreciate you. If you're listening, God knows wherever, whether you're at work, I really, really, really appreciate you. Thank you to the chat room for tuning in. Thank you to Gina G from Reppin' to NorCal Sports saying, another great show, Teran. I appreciate you saying that. Adam Karnick for popping in, and David C. Crooks for popping in for a little bit. He's probably listening on his earbuds. I appreciate you two tuning in. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy watching some good old volleyball. If you're wearing sunscreen, and please wear your sunscreen if you plan on going to the beach. If you aren't vaccinated, please go get vaccinated. And just be a good overall person in this world. Keep on the lookout for an announcement from Set Point's Twitter account, which is set_point.ie, as there will be a big announcement coming on later on the week. I will see you all Friday for the 50th episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Have yourselves a great rest of the week, and I'll see you Friday. Peace!